welcome to the Convex Conversation with me, broadcaster Helen Fospero. As we enter a new year and put 2025's challenges and pressures of modern living behind us, January is often a good time to recalibrate and calm our stressed out nervous systems. Today's guest is renowned somatic movement educator Nahid de Belgeonne, an expert in helping people rediscover their energy and joy. Her clients range from time-pressed CEOs and high-performance athletes to people managing degenerative conditions like Parkinson's. Nahid's new book, Soothe, features a selection of case studies and offers what I think I would call a toolkit of positive actions to reacquaint our bodies with our minds. Comedian Sarah Pascoe is quoted on the cover, describing Nahid as a wizard at unwinding and relaxing. To be honest, just holding a paperback copy with its gentle pastel colours on the cover makes me feel relaxed. I've realised lots of things about myself as I've absorbed Nahid's knowledge. I've discovered so many simple yet effective takeaways to help us take better care of ourselves before burnout or debilitating stress takes hold. So I thought it would be a perfect time to invite Nahid onto the podcast. Thank you so much for leaving what sounds like an idyllic place to live, Deal, to be here in freezing London temperatures today. How are you?
I'm so good, thank you. It's great to see snow in London, isn't it?
It's so pretty when it starts to snow. It's absolutely freezing out there, but sunny.
Sunny.
And then just as you arrived in what looked like a little snow globe.
I know, it was quite magical.
Flakes.
Yes.
When people ask what you do, how do you describe being a somatic movement educator?
Well, I often have to take a big, deep intake of breath because it requires a little bit of explanation. But I think maybe the easiest thing to say to people is that I help you come back into your rhythm. So your nervous system is your brain, your spinal cord, and the communication from that into your body and back into spinal cord and brain. So really, your body's giving you all of these signals about how you are at any given time. And I just help you to tune back into those signals because I think the modern culture that we live in, the modern world that we live in, really makes us divorced from how we actually feel at any given time. So I help you to tune back into yourself, if you like.
That's a lovely way of describing it. What does somatic mean?
So soma means of the body, and under the umbrella of somatic, you've got things like Alexandra technique, which is possibly more familiar. You have Rolfing, Feldenkrais, which is one of the things that I'm trained in. And it's all about how you can return back to a rhythm of good functioning. Because when you are in better relationship with yourself and you have a better understanding of what your energy levels are like any time of the day, you're then better equipped to be able to tend to yourself, if you like, to give yourself what you need at a given time. Because what we're all doing at the moment is we're just crashing and burning. We just push. Then we get into bed and wonder why we can't sleep because all of the day's stresses are still in your brain. So this is just a much gentler way of being biologically fit.
I love the idea of that, but I think often we don't really give our nervous system any attention. And I would imagine if you stopped 100 people on the high street today and actually pinned them down to what is our nervous system, I think lots of people wouldn't have the correct answer. We all think we vaguely know what it means. But why are our nervous systems so frayed and often neglected these days?
Well, I think it's because we are bombarded with so much information and we live in a technological age and we kind of think that we are also machines. And there's so much information coming at us that your brain and your nervous system in the background is constantly trying to recalibrate and filter things out. But we don't really help it because we're not outdoors a lot and that's very regulatory. Our leisure time is spent sitting down watching quite hyper-vigilant films and entertainment, or we're scrolling all the time. There's never any let-up. And actually, a really interesting thing to know is that your brain toggles between external sensory processing and internal reflection. So you go out and in and out and in, a little bit like you do in sleep, where there's a little bit of activity happening where it lays down memory and gets rid of wastage. And then you go into cycles of deep sleep. We have those similar rhythms in the day, but we don't pay them any attention. But as soon as you start paying them attention and work according to your nervous system and how you function, life just becomes a lot gentler. So it's just a much gentler, more human way to go through life.
And can anybody do it?
Yeah, anybody can do it. The range of clients I get are huge. So I teach doctors and trainee doctors all the way through to really stressed out CEOs. Sometimes quite a lot of men whose wives have sent them to me because they just can't live with that at home anymore. Great in the boardroom, wanting to be the same CEO at home and boss everybody around or order everyone around, and doesn't quite understand human relationships. And so they all send their husbands to me, and they haven't got a lot of time, and they don't know why they're there, and they don't understand what it is. But after the first session, they'll be like, oh, because it's like coming home to yourself. We normalize stress and we normalize tension, and we think that is our baseline. And as soon as it's not there, or as soon as you can dissipate it a bit, you have this really deep sense of coming home again. So your body becomes your refuge.
Isn't it funny that you can do all of this, yet we're not really taught this kind of thing, are we? We live in these bodies, but with very little knowledge about, for example, the relationship the brain has with the body and the body has with the brain. We inhabit this shell, if you like, or body, but we don't really know how to look after it or how to help it look after us.
That's absolutely right, Helen. And I think it's because our learning is in isolated chunks, so we don't have the context of things. It's a little bit like how Eastern practices were brought to the West. We took an aspect of it out of context of the whole. So it's a whole system. And if you think about the human body, this idea of the brain and the body not being separate entities, we kind of understand that as a concept, but we don't really get it. But if you think that your brain travels into your spinal cord and the nerves from the brain, so it's your brain going into the body, there really is no separation. And what I find very interesting, neuroscience gives us quite a lot of great information about how we function, is that there's more signals coming from your body to your brain than there is the other way around. So the old paradigm of thinking we're a brain with a body has actually been turned on its head. We're a body with a brain. And if you understand that, maybe you'll take a bit more care of yourself. I often teach journalists, academics. Most of us in this culture are actually very brain-led. And they have no connection and no relationship to their bodies at all because they think the brain leads everything. But if you now understand that all the signals coming from your body are going to influence your brain, you'll then understand actually your thoughts are made up, your emotions are made up. They're all constructs of how you feel. So what I do in my work is I go to the body first because your body will always respond first. And if you think about it, if you hear a loud bang, your brain doesn't go, oh my God, there's a bang, let me move out the way. Your whole body tenses up and you'll have an instinct to run away from it. My work is on the basis of that. Just exactly as you were when you were a baby. When you were a baby, you had no language for how you felt. So you'd have to communicate with your body, smiling at your caregiver, moving away from something that tastes sour. Actually, you're no different. We like to think we're really sophisticated, and we are, but in a different way. Your body is giving you signals. It will respond first. And so it's really important to tend to that first.
And is it really transformative? And for you to watch people come to you in whatever state of mind or state they arrive at your doorstep or on your Zoom in, is it wonderful to see the changes that people can make once they understand really what's going on?
It's absolutely astonishing me. I've been teaching for 20 years and it still astonishes me. And I get some quite tough cases coming to me. People who are referred to me by psychotherapists, but talking therapies has reached its natural conclusion because you can only do so much with talking. It's good for contextualizing and rationalizing and externalizing. But I don't believe you can think your way out of a feeling state. So I often get psychotherapists will refer clients to me. And there was one client in particular who had quite a traumatized background. And every time she heard something that alarmed her system, she'd go into a freeze state, like a seizure. She'd actually have seizures, and they're non-epileptic seizures. This has been happening all her life. And when she came to me, she'd been in therapy for many decades, and she was in her mid-50s. And after 6 sessions, I was able to get her to recognize the signals way before a seizure. So often when something happens to you, your temperature might go up, you might sweat a little bit, whatever your patterns are. Maybe it's clenching the jaw or your shoulders going up. If you can tend to those really early signals, you'll then understand that actually I'm somewhere that either I don't feel safe or it reminds me of somewhere where I don't feel safe. There's something going on. And to get really curious about that so you don't go off into this automatic response. So we're disrupting your habitual responses and then getting a bit curious about what's actually going on. So then you can take the relevant action. And if you think about how we live, we're not given time for that at all. I often think, wouldn't it be great if there was a ponder button on emails where you get lots of emails all at the same time and you feel like you have to respond straight away? And so I often teach my clients that just because technology is fast doesn't mean that you have to be. I think we've gotten into this state of where being at ease doesn't feel safe to us. It's not normalised. It doesn't feel normal to us at all. Whereas being productive and busy all the time and wrung out and strung out is our new normal. And I think especially now where everything's getting faster and faster, we really have to gatekeep our nervous systems, because if you don't, nobody else will.
And are we going back in some ways to ancient practices? Because when you go back hundreds of years, people weren't receiving emails 24/7. They weren't on their laptops 24/7. Now we have no real boundary anymore between relaxation time and work time because it's all interweaved. But are a lot of the techniques that you teach going back hundreds, perhaps thousands of years?
Yeah, they probably are. If you think about going back hundreds, thousands of years, you lived in communities. So you had lots of people to talk to, lots of people who took up tasks in that community. Looking after children was a community thing. This awful thing that we're in, where women on their own are at the peak of their career and their peak of childbearing, and then maybe a parent is aging as well. I mean, that's impossible, isn't it? That's just impossible, a load on one person. So we regulate by being outdoors, by moving. And so all of those things were present then. Now, if you think about our lifestyle, we're indoors a lot. We're in darkened rooms. We sit down all day. I'm not sure that sitting down is the evil thing necessarily. It's just the being in one fixed state all the time, because movement's really regulatory. You were telling me about going out to Richmond Park with your son and how you can walk and talk about things. That's such a lovely thing to do, because actually, if you're trying to get something out of a teenage boy sitting opposite them, that's the worst thing you can do to them. It feels too grilled, doesn't it? Like you're being put on the spot. But the walking and the being in the open space is already regulating him and you, so that you can have much wider perspective on whatever it's that you're talking about on your issues. So because we don't live in the way that we used to live, we really have to tend to our nervous systems a lot more. You're absolutely right.
I'm fascinated to know what led you down this path in the first place.
Well, I think as ever, when people come into this sort of work, they are trying to resolve something for themselves. Both my parents came to England in the 60s. They came to London. It's quite a harsh environment then. They were middle class and they had good jobs, but it was quite a shock. The cold, the strange food, sometimes quite a lot of hostility. And so I think they were really super stressed by it all and being away from family. So they were really stressed. And so when they had us, it was just really stressful as well. They found that very stressful. And it was a very volatile house because my parents didn't know how to self-soothe. No one had taught them. And so they didn't know how to pass it on. So it was a house full of lots of heightened emotions. And that propelled me quite well, because in your 20s, you know, when you first leave home, and in your 20s and 30s, there's a lot of chaos and excitement, and you kind of embrace it and it propels you forward. And you also think it's sort of wrapped up with ambition, that you have to work hard and climb up and you just got to put the hours in, and that's how you do it. But then you get to around your 40s and you have a lot more responsibilities. Your career is a bit more serious then. You might have a mortgage. Maybe you have children. You just have a lot more responsibilities and a lot more demands on you. And that's often the point where people just collapse into burnout or other dysregulation issues. So I used to have studios in central London, and it was yoga and Pilates and fitness. And all the people that came to me were seemingly doing the right things. They looked like they were eating well, they would exercise and so on. But they were still having issues like fertility issues. They couldn't sleep, or they were angry, or they were depressed, or felt very low in mood, or very heightened in their emotions. And I got really interested in that because I wanted to find out what was going on underneath the bonnet. And that's how I came into understanding the nervous system a lot better, which is your master system. If that's functioning well and you set up the conditions to allow it to function well, everything else falls into place. And you also start to have little compassionate revelations about yourself of like, oh yeah, when I go into this sort of environment, it stresses me out a bit. So how do I make that manageable for me? Well, maybe I breathe a little bit. Maybe I go for a walk before. Maybe I make sure that I have a really nutritious breakfast so I can cope with this additional challenge. I won't overload my system. This will be the work for the day. And then that way you're preparing your whole system for something that you find challenging. And then afterwards you give yourself a little bit of time to recover from things. Because I think what's happening in our culture now is because of technology, which I love, by the way, so I'm not at all demonizing technology. Like, how great is it? We can keep in touch with each other. I have clients from all over the world from my little studio. So I really love technology, but I do think we need to put some boundaries around it. Because your brain needs to know when something starts and something ends. And of course, everything just melds into one, as you say, all the way to bedtime, with often people scrolling in bed, which is just awful for your nervous system.
That's never me.
Yeah, oh. Never me either. Never me either. I know.
It is.
Is it?
It is. Yes. Sometimes.
So it used to be me. All of these things used to be me. And in fact, I used to work in technology about 20 years ago. So I love it and I get it. And I understand the compulsion, the compelling nature of it. But if you don't set some boundaries and some transitions between one type of activity and another, it's really confusing for your system because it doesn't know that something has ended and you can rest, and then for your brain to switch into another type of action. And a good example of that is in the COVID years, poor mothers and fathers, but I feel like mothers bore the brunt from all the women that I talk to. That complete amorphous shape of work, life, educating your children, cleaning, cooking, there was just never end to that. So, if you're working and somebody interrupts you and your brain has to switch from that to that, it takes a lot of energy. And your brain's job is to conserve your energy because it doesn't quite know what's going to hit you in the day. And if you understand from many, many, many years ago in hunter-gatherer tribes, your brain developed for complex organizing and complex communication. So going out, organizing a tribe and so on. That's why it developed, and moving a lot throughout the day. So that's completely the opposite of what we do. So there was a start and an end to that. You go out, you hunt, you come back, you eat, you cook in community, you sleep to recover from the hunting and prepare yourself for another day, and so on and so on. But look at how there's no schedule at all in our life, how the morning and the nighttime could almost be the same segment of the day. Do you know what I mean? There's no start or end. So you have to make that start and the end. You have to kind of signal to your brain, I have finished this thing, I'm going to stop now. So if you are working from home, I always say to people, once you've stopped working, go out for a walk as if you were coming back from work and then walk in so that you can adopt that next persona that you need for the next part of your day.
Often when I catch myself doing a little bit of scrolling in bed, you know how these algorithms work? It's watching wise words from Buddhist monks or
Yes.
whatever. So I'm actually often watching things about how to sleep better. And there I am actually scrolling on the phone. So it's no wonder that I do find it hard sometimes to drop to sleep, because that, for me, scrolling aside, I think it's the time when my brain processes what's happened in the day, when I have a few minutes to think. And I've realised it's really impacted on my sleep because I love my sleep. I used to nod off in a heartbeat. But I think it's that time where it's, I've now got time to process. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Is that what my brain's doing, do you think?
Yeah, I do. It makes complete sense because, of course, you've given up your time for others, haven't you, throughout the day? So what about this? What I always encourage my clients to do is throughout the day, you're going to be regulating. So say you're here, you've delivered this brilliant podcast, and then afterwards, don't run straight into another piece of work. Go for a walk, do something, move a little bit so that you can get the action out of your body, and then you can process it, and then you can think about what you're going to do next so that you're not running from one thing to another. When I teach clients and I'm online, I have to create those transitional times. So I will do things like, I've got a little rebounder. So I'll jump on my rebounder and just get that energy out of me so that I can prepare myself for the next person. Or I might go for a walk. But your brain works similar to the sleep pattern. If you have 90 minutes of action with 20 minutes of some sort of downtime, and then work in those cycles throughout the day, it's so helpful. I've been doing it for quite a long time now.
So even just taking maybe a bath where you light some candles and just have a think about your day, perhaps that's the time that
exactly.
that you can get those thoughts out so that when your head actually hits the pillow, you drift.
Yes.
Just going back, I was intrigued by your story. I think because of the first line of your introduction in the book, you really took me aback with how honest and frank you were. And you said, I grew up in a house full of stress, unhappiness and worry. No one meant for that to happen, but it did. And I just wondered how you, as a young child, coped with that. It didn't sound like it was anybody's fault. Your parents had moved here from Bangladesh. They were in a new society, new culture, struggling probably to cope with everything, work, managing children, new people, new cultures. As you say,
and no safety net of
no, not everyone
community.
perhaps being nice, as you said. I think that was in the 60s, wasn't it, that they came over. But how did the young Nahid cope with all that? Did you store stuff up, do you think?
Yeah, I think with lots of different ways. I think I retracted a lot. So I'd always be the person at the table reading the back of cereal packets. I'm a real avid reader from it. I drew a lot. I try and retract myself from it if I possibly could. But meal times were particularly volatile because then all these people who were at different dysregulated states would get together. So it was quite dramatic every meal times. Teenage years, I probably didn't eat. It manifested itself in lots of different ways over the years. And when I did leave home, I always got very, very intense about everything that I did. So if I was into fitness, I was really into fitness. I didn't have my first drink till I was about 30, but I really got into drink. Do you know what I mean? Like anything to take your mind away from things. And I think that's true of all of us. We don't like feeling the small stuff because it makes us worry. We don't know what to do. It feels too uncomfortable or painful. So we replace it with big sensations. Look at our fitness culture or the wellness culture or our world, actually. Everything's big, isn't it? Big, big sensations constantly all the time so that you don't really tend to what's going on underneath. And I often say to people, it's like, well, if our culture has groomed us and advertising and marketing has groomed us to not trust our feelings, because when you don't trust yourself, you're really easy to manipulate and sell things to. So this is going back to actually, how am I feeling right now? And not numbing yourself with something, but actually being very open to it and going, what I need right now is something else.
And when you went on the journey of learning to be an educator and do the work you do now, did that help you? Could you almost en route heal yourself? I know lots of your learnings come from how you've helped look after yourself.
Without a doubt, everything's been tested on me. So I was always a seeker. And I did the usual things of breathwork and meditation and yoga. And the big movements all worked for a bit until they didn't. They helped for a bit. And then you just thought, well, what do I do in the moment? I used to suffer from chronic anxiety, so I couldn't get on the tube. And it would just completely freak me out. I thought I'd stop breathing. So I used to walk across London all the time, which everyone thought was quite odd. And I just wondered, how could I get over that rather than going to a class somewhere? So it's about not outsourcing it, but really understanding what's going on. And for me, what I found was that there was this really obvious connection between your body responding, first of all, and then your mind making sense of it. So I would then go, okay, my breathing's getting shorter, so let me just calm that down. But also let me find out what's really true in the moment, so rather than my head spinning out. And what's really true in the moment, what your brain loves to know is, where are you located? So feet on the floor, back against the chair. You can really press into that. That will help you get out of this ruminating mind and into physicality. So that's incredibly soothing for the nervous system to just know where you are in space. And also where you are in the day part. That's why transitions are so important. So getting up early in the morning and getting daylight into your eyes is a great thing to do because it sets off all of your circadian rhythms for the day. And then going out at dusk as well, which I've started doing the last 5 years. And it's so helpful because that will start winding you down for bedtime. That will help you stop scrolling. Yeah. Because you start naturally quietening down. So this isn't mindset. It's not you having to listen to lots of rules and obey rules. It's exactly the opposite of that. It's finding what your rhythms are and going with them and allowing biology to help you understand that.
And exploring them and listening to them. Because so many of us just go through life not really aware of anything. like this. I think everybody should read Soothe because it's such an easy read as well. And I mean that in the most complimentary way, that every page offers such encouraging tips, advice, simple things that we could all just gradually incorporate into our life. And some of them I recognise because some of them are things that I already do. But through all of this, you've created the human method and the Soothe method. Broadly, what are the fundamental principles of both before we dig a bit deeper?
Sure. So the human method is all about how we can be a bit more human. I realised that when I was looking into the nervous system, I didn't want to teach movement as exercise. I love movement as exercise and I do it, but I didn't want to do that anymore. I wanted to teach movement as a regulatory practice because have you ever meditated?
Badly.
Yeah. Well, that's most people's experience.
I'm the sort that's writing a shopping list whilst trying to meditate.
And I think I have a meditation practice of about 25 years before COVID hit. So I think I was that person as well, actually, to be honest about it. And that's because in the culture that we live in, we carry a lot of tension in the body that we don't tend to. So those are subconscious messages to your brain just going, I don't actually feel safe. Yeah, you may well want to sit here on a cushion and let your mind go quiet, but I'm not feeling safe and I'm going to tell you that because I still feel very stressed. And so that's what your brain is listening to, and that's why it's so hard to focus. Now, of course, in the cultures that meditation comes from, communities of men who all live together, they don't have to tend to children at all. They have a timetable of cooking, cleaning, collectively, gardening. And because they've moved all day, when they come to sit, their joints are well prepared. So it's really easy for them to be still because they've moved their muscles and they've moved their blood flow around all day. So it's quite a big ask to try and transpose that to the culture that we live in. So don't beat yourself up if you can't meditate. This is so much easier. You tend to your body. So really simple things like rocking on the floor will recalibrate the bones, will get the flow going again. So what the human method does is it realigns you, if you like, so that your body feels spacious and it's not shouting at you. So it's all about listening to the signals from your body. We use breath, guided movements to help your body to release its tension and your mind to then be freer so that you can focus on whatever it is that you're doing. It's moving from your felt sense. So I don't teach pranayama or breathing control. It's actually letting your body find its natural rhythm, and it's only going to do that when it's tension-free.
And of course, we store a lot of tension in our body, don't we, that we don't even realise.
Absolutely.
I mean, my hip flexors are completely tight, and that's probably one of the places I store my stress, but don't even realise it. Or my shoulders are usually touching my ears if I'm stressed. I think most people will be familiar with that kind of thing.
I'm sure, well, they are, because I see a lot of them. So the human method was born out of the explorations in my studio, and I was seeing people for backache and neck ache, postural issues and so on. And then an outcome of that was that suddenly they were sleeping better and feeling a little bit happier and feeling not so anxious. So that's when I went down the route of the Soothe program, which was all about burnout, anxiety and stress. And then later on trauma issues where psychotherapists refer clients to me. And that is looking at your patterns. So it's not true that you hold emotions in your body, but you hold the pattern of that emotion. So maybe you learnt really early on that when you are stressed, your shoulders go up. And it would have saved you. Maybe there was a time when you were a bit anxious about, I don't know, your first presentation or something, that you felt like this would protect you and you had to brace yourself. Well, the trouble with that, it was a good thing, but when you don't need it, you want to be able to let go of it. So we don't want to be fixed in either rest or action. We want to have a flexible nervous system that can meet the challenges and then retract and restore from it, and then meet them again and retract and restore from it. So you don't want to have no challenges in life. You want to be challenged, but you also want to be able to recover from it. So it's a flexible system that we're looking for. So the human method is all about, under that umbrella, I'll do workshops, retreats and so on. Whereas under Soothe program, it's a 12-week program that I do with people. And we look at their lifestyle and we look at what issues they're going under. And I might well ask, well, where do you hold your stress? And then we'll help you to unpick those patterns of those emotions over time. And recently, I just taught somebody who came to me with multiple panic attacks a day. and she hadn't slept properly for 3 weeks. So she was feeling quite anxious and really super hypervigilant. And even when she was telling me about her day, even I took in a sharp intake of breath. And I thought, okay, this is going to take a while. But after her very first session, the panic attack stopped.
Did they?
Yes.
Do you think that's because in her mind she knew she was helping herself?
There is a bit of that. Yeah, you're absolutely right. When you have space held for you, that's already healing for the nervous system. But my approach is part science, intuition, and realism, really, about how you live. So I would never lecture you. I would never say to you, don't scroll at bed, because it happens sometimes, doesn't it? But know the consequences of scrolling late at night at bed, and then you can make a decision for yourself about, is that helpful or is that not helpful? So it's a very compassionate, revelatory way to understand yourself. So it's very different from me telling you what to do. It's unlearning, actually.
You're sort of enabling that unlearning to take place.
Yeah.
And perhaps pointing the way.
Yes.
And pointing out what we can listen to and the signals that our body gives us. Our body is so clever, isn't it? And our mind, the signals are probably all there. It's just sometimes we don't really take any notice of them.
Exactly that. And we haven't been taught to do it because our culture discourages it. It actually encourages disassociation, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And then
absolutely.
that makes you a good little worker.
Yeah.
You will do those long hours at work and you'll put up with only having 2 days off a week, which is absurd, isn't it? To get on with your admin and, life admin. It's crazy, isn't it?
I think one thing that always strikes me, breathing, fundamental to life.
Yes.
We take our first breath when we're born, our last when we die. But it is something that many of us, including myself, take very little notice of. And it's also something I've been really trying to get into a bit more. I like the idea, but the whole thing, breath work, puts me off. And then it's a bit like meditation. It's like, I haven't got time to be doing that. But reading your book made me realise how just a couple of minutes a day can really make a huge difference. Our breathing's so important. I think I read in your book that we breathe 23,000 times throughout the day. And yet we don't pay any attention. How key is good breathing and being aware of it so that sometimes we can help soothe ourselves or calm ourselves down?
Well, it's super important, really, because it's the regularity that your nervous system needs, and your brain's job is to keep you alive. So it will prioritise breathing over everything. I'm going to show you a way that you can breathe.
Good.
Would you like that?
Yes, please. I really like that.
A good thing to do, I think breathing, for me, I had exactly the same thing of like breathing exercises felt like an exercise and an imposition on an already fraught nervous system. But actually, if you feel it instead of doing it, you might sense something differently. So you're going to place your fingers on your lower ribs.
Okay.
Yeah. And let them be quite light. Let your elbows drop down. All right. So you've got your fingers.
Put my pen down. That's not a great start, is it?
And then let your eyes close and let your lower jaw drop away, but keep your lips closed. Yep. Lovely. And then very gently, you're going to start to take a slow breath in through the nostrils and a slow breath out the nostrils. Lovely. And carry on doing that. And somewhere in that, you're going to start to count 6 on the way in and 6 seconds on the way out. So we're evening out your breath. It's a 6-6 breathing. It's one of the easiest breaths to do. But also it delivers oxygen, gets rid of carbon dioxide, gets all the brain, the heart, the lungs coming back into coherence. Great stuff. And now I'm going to shift your attention to your fingers and your ribs. Notice that as you breathe in, your ribs travel all the way outwards to your fingers. Don't do it, just notice it. And as you breathe out, it seems to travel from fingers back into ribs. Lovely. Carry on like that. Sensing, let your brow unfurrow. Let your jaw drop. Nice. Let your shoulders drop and your elbows drop. That's it. And just keep sensing the movement underneath your fingers of your breath. And as you inhale, notice that it feels a little bit like a parasol moving away from the spine. And as you exhale, it folds back in towards the spine. Lovely. And it's not you doing, it's just you sensing the fingers on the ribs. And when we breathe like this, we're sending the breath in lower into the lower lobes of the lungs. And that's where the relaxation nerves in your lungs lie. And up higher is where the action part of your nervous system, those nerves lie. So we want to breathe lower, not fuller, just lower into the lungs. Lovely. And then from here, let your hands come down. Keep breathing. Slowly open your eyes.
Oh my goodness. You can just notice such a huge difference.
Yeah, because it's not mindset. I don't think you're going to change very much from the brain down to the body. This is from the body up to the brain, so that you're using all of your senses to feel. I think that's why meditation possibly doesn't work for some people, because you're trying to get your brain to overrule all other senses. And that's actually aping what you do in life.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah,
You're not listening. You're just trying to disassociate from the brain down. Whereas this is about opening up all of your senses, because you learn through all of your senses, just as you did when you were a baby. You're still doing that now. So the more open we can be to everything that we're sensing and feeling. And I'll give you an example. Have you ever had that experience where somebody's talking to you and they're saying something, but their body language is completely off?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so your senses are heightened.
Yeah.
Because you're just like, I don't feel this is very safe. There's something going on here that I can't quite put my finger on. And they're saying the right things and having a pleasant face, but I don't believe them. Well, tune into your senses, because there's something going on there.
So it's trusting your gut, isn't it, as well? Trusting your gut instincts.
We are so much more than just a made-up thoughts. We're so much more than that. So tapping back into that. And wasn't that breathwork easy?
It was easy, but the nice thing is that I get caught up on being quite a shallow breather and not being able to breathe in and out for 6. And actually I forgot about that because I was busy thinking about the parasol or the sense that my fingers on my ribs.
Perfect.
And actually completely forgot, because
Brilliant.
I think I then breathe badly when I'm thinking about the breath. But it also makes me realise that you can do that anyway. You could be sitting on a tube or waiting for you today. Then I could have just shut my eyes and just done a few minutes of breathing. I think it's about integrating it into your life. Or if you arrive somewhere early in the car, just take a few moments to close your eyes and do that, because I do run at 24/7. I run at 100 miles an hour the whole time, and it's the way I like life. That's part of who I am. I'm busy with career, busy with children, busy with family, friends, and I love it. But I know that I have to be a bit kinder to myself. And I think that's one of the many reasons why your book resonates so much, because we need that, don't we?
Yeah, I think maybe you're a bit like me as well, because I thought that rest would make me unambitious.
Yes.
Maybe even I didn't deserve it. I just had to keep running. Maybe even that I was running away from my past and my thoughts. There's lots going on there, isn't it?
Yeah.
How we learn to be who we are. How do we form our identities?
Exactly.
If not from a very early age, based on all of our experiences. But as I said, that's not wrong. You needed it at the time.
Yeah.
But there is more to life.
Yeah. These are lovely learnings, aren't they? That really just enrich your life, as opposed to take anything away.
Completely. So I used to run from one thing to another, and every time I come back to London, which is quite often, I'll sit on the tube and everybody's on their phone and I'm not. I'll just sit there and I'll watch people or daydream or close my eyes and have a little breath work or something. Having been involved in technology and seeing the advent of the World Wide Web, that's when I was involved in it. I was a real early embracer of all technology. But I remember quite a few years ago just thinking, I'm going to really be careful about my time. My time is so precious. I mean, I had a near-death experience.
Did you?
Yeah, many years ago, and that was quite a pivotal thing. So not listening to my body at all. I had very busy studios in central London, and in its heyday, I had about 50 staff and about 4 centres in central London. So it's quite a lot to keep, and it was just mine, and it grew organically. And it was great and exciting until it was just so overwhelming. The whole thing was so much to manage that I completely shut off my sense of myself and just was this complete workhorse. It was probably the pinnacle of my career. And it was interesting because I was in wellness, but I was probably the most unhealthiest because I couldn't sleep. I was working all the time, just trying to keep everything going. Closing one down didn't really occur to me. I think if you were sensible, you would have just thought, okay, what works in this and what doesn't. I just thought that if you build something and it keeps growing, you ought to just keep growing it. Going backwards one just felt very at odds with how I operated. But I ended up, without realising it, I had a gangrenous appendix. And I thought, oh yeah, it's fine. A little bit of pain there, I'll be fine. But then I was rushed into hospital and I went down to 6 stone and the doctor said to my husband, you nearly lost her. Oh, and that was a real wake-up call. I'd had many along the way, but that was the biggest wake-up call. But what a shame for something like that to happen before we really understand how our full human possibilities. What a shame. And so I often see people a bit like you who say, well, it hasn't done me any harm. And I'm like, how do you know?
Yeah.
How do you know in your parallel life what you could have achieved if it had been calmer and saner and more regulated?
But often I think people only seek out help from people like you when there's been burnout incredible stress. And I think I've been on this learning journey for the last few years, and I love finding out much more about these kinds of things and just being kinder to myself and more gentle. And it actually makes you, in many ways, you end up being more productive because
completely
rest is so important. And I never really found proper time, I think, for rest. And maybe I did feel I've worked since I was 17 and resting isn't what I do because I'm freelance and I keep going. I think that's a lot to do with it as well, being a freelance. So you haven't got that safety net of a staff job, so you keep going, you don't say no to anything. But rest now I love, and my idea of rest, I've realised, is physical. It's getting out and doing a big hike in the middle of nowhere in sunshine, or if I'm lucky enough sometimes to have a few days skiing. It's active rest because I'm an active person and I'm an outdoors person. I've realised I need sunlight and fresh air, and to feel physically exhausted makes me enjoy the rest more too.
Yeah. And well, you're absolutely right, actually. I think most of us aren't physically exhausted. We're mentally exhausted. And so we have collapsed bodies and a wired brain. And that's another reason for people not being able to sleep, because there's this real disconnect between body and brain. So you're absolutely right. Getting yourself physically exhausted is a great thing to do.
And sleep is so important too. All these hacks are free, aren't they?
Absolutely.
Hacks is probably the wrong word, but you know what I mean. All the things we can embrace more. And
exactly.
They don't cost anything. They're accessible to everybody.
Yeah.
But isn't that the time when our body repairs? And we need plenty of sleep, don't we?
If anybody comes to me, the very first thing I will look at is their sleep. I'm teaching somebody with ADHD and she has no structure at all and her sleep is all over the place. She's hugely productive, hugely successful. She has 2 daughters who are also ADHD, so it's all quite a hypervigilant household. But the really interesting thing about regulating yourself is that you also non-verbally regulate everybody in your environment.
Do you?
So I'm teaching her these skills and her daughters have picked up on it. And so she said that she had a Christmas away with them and it was her calmest Christmas that has ever happened.
Gosh, those stories must really make you want to get up in the morning and do some more and keep going at what you do.
They really do, yeah.
Another
they really
phrase that you use is that our superpower is paying attention. And once you start to pay attention, it's quite addictive. It's hard not to, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I suppose you naturally have that in your job because you are paying attention to people and you're really present because that's what you do and that's what you've learned to do. And if you talk to most people, you'll see that's really not there.
Really?
Yeah. When you talk to most people, maybe it doesn't happen to you, but generally most people aren't really present in any one thing. They're all over the place. And yeah, your attention really is your superpower because ruminating about a problem actually has the same effect on your nervous system as the first stress itself. There's a really great Buddhist parable about the 2 arrows of suffering, and the first arrow is the event itself. And the second arrow is all the stories you make up about it. That's your true suffering. And so where are you going to pay your attention? From the stories around it or from the new things that you're going to introduce into your life to make life calmer, saner, more enjoyable? So I suggest put it forward, pay it into something that's actually going to sustain you.
Our brain is just a superpower in itself, isn't it? We can create more positive neural pathways, can't we?
Yeah.
Through thought and how we react to events in our lives.
So I'd actually say we can create more positive outcomes by action rather than thought. Your thoughts made up. Your thoughts are made up by all your other senses. When you encounter something, you're not really meeting it in the moment. Your brain scans past experience and goes, what is this like? And it meets that with present moment sensation. So it might be that, I don't know, if you had somebody in your family that you found quite irksome and they had a tone of voice, anytime that you hear it in your life, your body will respond first, thinking, oh, let me get my shoulders up and get ready for this challenge. So that's why it's so important to breathe feel yourself in your surroundings, press your feet into the floor and go, okay, I'm not my thoughts, I'm actually present moment. And then deal with whatever you're having to deal with. It's a really different experience from being reactive to being much more contemplative and going, okay, how will I deal with this thing right now? With chronic anxiety and all the other things that I've had throughout my life, I'm a completely different person now. Not from mindset, not from writing goals or any of those things. Not that I think any of those things are bad, but it's actually dealing with myself, tending to myself, being in better relationship with myself, understanding what it is that I need and what environments make me thrive, and planning or cultivating a life with more of those things. That doesn't mean to say that I avoid things that I find challenging. I just prepare myself really well.
It's interesting you use the word tend, because that always makes me think of a garden. And actually, if you had a little veg garden or something like that and you didn't tend it and you didn't water it and you didn't remove the dead leaves, it would just be a mess of weeds. But you put that bit of attention in, ensure it's getting a bit of sunshine, watered properly, then everything comes to fruition. And I suppose we're a bit like gardens, aren't we? We need a little bit of tending too.
Ongoing tending. We're in a relationship with ourselves, and that's an ongoing relationship all throughout our lives. So if you have done something when you were younger that you wish you hadn't, it doesn't matter, because you can change it. You can shift direction. I think if you think where you want to be, if you think in terms of directionally moving towards that rather than arriving, it's much more compassionate and friendlier and sweeter, isn't it?
Yeah, because it's all about the journey as well, isn't it? It's not about getting from A to B in one leap. And I think it's all about good habits as well, habit forming, little habits, not being overambitious, deciding, well, from next week or from today, I will try and do just a minute or two of the breath that you showed me.
Yeah.
And it's about having small, achievable goals, I think, for yourself. What is the one thing, Nahid, that you've learned about yourself over the last few years, or you've taken away from the human method and the Soothe method, that you feel is the greatest achievement for you or the most important part of what you do?
I think it's being able to disrupt your habitual pattern. I think that's so powerful. Because sometimes when you're stuck in something and a behaviour, you think you'll never get out of it. And perhaps even you think there's something wrong with you. But once you understand that it's not your personality, it's actually being able to get curious about why you do what you do, in what circumstances you do them, then you're more able to be really compassionate with yourself and unpick that so that you don't think you're stuck. I think that's really important, especially in this day and age where we have such polarization. But actually, if you can meet things with understanding and finding common ground or getting curious about it, it leads to a much better outcome.
It certainly does. It's been great to have you here today. And thank you for being so generous with your advice. And I agree with Sarah Pascoe. You are clearly a wizard at unwinding and relaxing. And I think I might have to find one of your retreat days and come and actually put some time in and learn some more in a non-podcast environment.
You'd be very welcome.
Do you still do the days?
I do. I've got one coming up.
We'll get diaries out later, and I would love to, if I'm allowed to book on one.
Yes, of course. I'd love to have you there.
That would be brilliant. You have been listening to Somatic Movement Educator Nahid de Belgeonne. Do check out her new book, Soothe, if you feel inspired to take a bit more care of yourself this new year. It's an Aladdin's cave full of helpful, easy ways to take care of ourselves. There's lots of science in there too, lots about the brain and the body, fascinating stats and facts and interesting things that perhaps a lot of us don't think about much. And it's all about taking one small step at a time. Download and subscribe to our series at convex.podbean.com or search The Convex Conversation on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you listen to yours. Next week, I'll be with renowned biographer Howard Soons. Join me then.